Director of Athletics, Dean Smith, and Steve Kirshner, who handles the media relations for basketball on a day-to-day basis in our office. Couple things real quick. Our staff, you probably won't be able to see them, but we'll be here to assist you afterwards. Dave Losey, just raise your hand. Dave, Matt Bowers, Kevin Beth, where's Beth? Beth McNichol, Jennifer Jordan, Lee Snyder, Angie Bidding from the Smith Center office, and also Mike McFarland and his staff from UNC News Services. Our players are here, and afterwards, in a few minutes, Steve will talk about protocol on how to deal with them afterwards. I do want to apologize for not getting back to some of you. We got a lot of calls last night, obviously. We were making calls, we were receiving calls, we were faxing out information, and I'm sorry we didn't get back to everyone. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Dick, who has an announcement to make.
Welcome to you all. Thank you for coming. We are honored to have you with us on this very important day in the life of the University of North Carolina. Coach Dean Smith, the head basketball coach of the University of North Carolina, has an announcement.
I don't want to talk to you guys again. I have decided to resign as head basketball coach at the University of North Carolina. There's been much speculation over the last 24 hours. I do try to have each of those guys single-digit body fat, but for the head coach, it didn't work. And I am healthy outside of no exercise, which I will begin on Monday with a James Worthy diabetic golf tournament. I'm going to walk. The other thing I couldn't believe, now I didn't, of course, obviously I was busy making phone calls, but somebody said I was mad at Chancellor Hooker. I had never had any better relationship with a chancellor, although equally with Chancellor Aycock and Chris Fordham. And then to say something about I didn't want Dick as AD. I wanted either two, Charles Waddell, Dick Baddour, and Dick is an unbelievable help to everyone here. And we have a happy family. It's almost like something's wrong. And I am 66 years old. Chancellor Aycock and Dick and I were having lunch in September, and Chancellor Aycock started saying how hard it was when the law was 65, and that's when I was working there. You retired. And he said a lot of professors didn't want to retire. And, well, this professor, and I think of myself as a faculty, has chosen to quickly, I know there'll be some feedback, and maybe you have these questions, is the fact that each year I've been saying, maybe for the last 8 years or so, you know, maybe it's time to go do something else. I enjoy basketball. I enjoy coaching basketball. It's the out-of-season things that I haven't been able to handle very well. And I had one weekend from last October 15th to May 18th. I canceled something. I took a weekend with my family. I say weekends, sure, I take a day off, but not weekends. That's when children, grandchildren are free. But without saying anything more, I mean, I better say something more in that, and I feel this is a horrible way to talk to a group like this, but they have two great friends. Earl Summers, who's now passed away, a local psychiatrist, said you have to semi-retire, you know, turn everything over, and like he could just see patients Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Another close friend, Bill Miller, who hasn't passed away, goes to Florida in the winter, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and he works Tuesday and Wednesday in Charlotte. And there's no way you can do this job that way. And my wife said she did a paper on post-retirement depression as a psychiatry residency. And she said, you need to plan these things. Well, I didn't plan them as well. Each April, Eddie Fogler, Roy Williams, Bill Guthridge, and I went with Bill Miller to his home in Florida and played some golf. I said, every April I feel, oh gosh. And then I get charged up. I got charged up again doing diagrams with the staff, and Eddie and Roy were just here, and Randy Wheel, former assistant, Larry Brown, he always fires me up. Watching him out on the court, the enthusiasm, and And I said, I used to be like that, and if I can't give this team that enthusiasm, I said I would get out. And that's honestly how I feel. There was a secondary deal because I was going out in September and recruiting, and I would say now, the people I'm recruiting, I will not be here your senior year. I wanted to be up front and not, you know, my contract runs out at 2001, and I'll be gone then. And I tried to sell the University of North Carolina, always have, to these guys as well, not Dean Smith. And they wisely chose North Carolina. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, I've said that, to be in Chapel Hill, to be at the University of North Carolina with this faculty, this student body, and I've been through a few of them. This is 39 student bodies. Well, actually, it's 40. This group just started. I arrived here in August of '58, and thanks to Frank McGuire and a great friend and Chancellor Aycock, I was able to come. Thanks to my players, I was able to stay. They didn't fire me. And I've had such loyalty from the players and from my assistant coaches. I'm so happy that Larry Brown could be here. Ken Roseman has passed away. Roy Williams and Eddie Fogler wanted to come. They just left after 4 days. Randy Wheel, I told him not to come. My former assistant, of course, Phil Ford and Dave Hanners are here. And then a very important assistant coach in the 1976 Olympics. What a surprise to see John Thompson. And what loyalty I've had, any man from my players over there. They're really special. That's all.
Without regard to 879 wins, Coach Dean Smith is absolutely the greatest to ever coach the game of basketball. And even more, he is one of the greatest teachers ever to be a part of the University of North Carolina. His love of and devotion to the university and to his student athletes is legendary. Through his integrity, his loyalty, his commitment to academic excellence, his class, and his ability to bring out the best in those around him, he has brought national acclaim to this university and to this state for nearly 40 years. Coach, you are the best.
I interrupted, in 1993, I interrupted President Clinton, who incidentally, he called. I think Erskine Bowles put him up to it today. But anyway, I interrupted you before the Chancellor because the assistant, whom we're here to honor too, and 30 years assistant, Bill Guthridge, and Roy Williams, Eddie Fogler, Randy, all of us, Phil Ford, Dave Hanners, Larry Brown, we all enthusiastically recommend Bill to be the head basketball coach and continue the stability and continuity to this program. But that's only, we recommend to the athletic director, we recommend to the Chancellor, so excuse me for interrupting.
Anytime, Coach. After careful consideration and discussion with Coach Smith, I have recommended to Chancellor Michael Hooker that Bill Guthridge be appointed as the head basketball coach of the University of North Carolina. The Chancellor has enthusiastically accepted the recommendation, and he will formally present it to the Board of Trustees as soon as possible. I will recommend a multi-year contract. We will discuss the terms of the contract as soon as they are finalized and approved by the Board of Trustees. Coach Guthridge has over 30 years of outstanding service to the university as a member of Coach Smith's staff. He has been instrumental in all phases of the program's success, to include coaching, recruiting, player and family relations, as well as academic achievement. He has learned well from the master, and he is ready and eager to do the job. I am confident that Coach Guthridge and his staff will continue to lead the Carolina basketball program in the same manner that it has enjoyed for so many years. Chancellor Hooker has some comments.
This is very difficult. I have admired Dean Smith since I was a freshman here in 1965. I remember very well in 1965 in Carmichael seeing Dean standing with, I believe it was Rusty Clark and Bill Bunting. And they were having a conversation in the hall, and I just stood and watched for probably 10 minutes. Dean has been my hero since then. I have always held him up to coaches that I've worked with over the years as a paragon of integrity. the kind of coach that I wanted each of them to be. Last year, in the press conference after he became the winningest basketball coach in history, Carmen and I were sitting in the press conference to share the occasion, and Dean walked in. He sat down at the microphone, and he started talking about academics at Carolina, and he attributed his success to his ability to recruit players to Carolina because of the academic quality of the institution. That says everything about Dean Smith. He is the consummate teacher. He is a paragon of integrity. I told him as we were coming down the stairs a few minutes ago that I don't think any person has ever done as much for his university in the history of American higher education as Dean Smith has done for Carolina. Coach, we will miss you. And I can't think of anybody more appropriate to pick up the mantle and carry on than the man who has sat beside Dean for so many years. Coach Guthridge, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be nominated to be the head coach at the University of North Carolina. This isn't quite the way that I have envisioned this whole scenario through the years. I was in hopes that Dean and I could go out together riding to the sunset in about 5 or 6 years, but that obviously isn't going to work out. Things don't always work out the way you want to. But I have loved being assistant coach to Dean Smith and to be associated, and we've all of us who have been associated have certainly enjoyed the ride that Dean Smith has given us for me for 30 years. And I've always felt, and I've told some of you, that I have had the best job in college athletics. That Dean has given me a lot of leeway, and I've been able to make about any decision I wanted to. And then if I didn't want to make a decision, I'd say, well, you have to go see Dean. So this year, if you see me with about 2 minutes to go in the game, get out my little portable phone, I'm calling Dean to say, what do we do now? But I am excited. We have a great group of young men on this year's team that are enjoyable to be around and to be associated with. And we're all disappointed that Dean Smith is not going to be the head coach this year and will continue on, but he certainly has a right to retire and go into something else, and I can guarantee you that it'll be something very productive for society, whatever he does. He's an amazing man. But I am excited about this year, and will do all I can to uphold the tradition of the University of North Carolina as an academic institution and as also as a basketball program. Thank you.
Again, I interrupt, and I know my day. But a special thank you. I said the staff, but we started out with Betsy Terrell, one secretary, and a fantastic one. And Kay Thomas came aboard, Linda Woods, Angela Lee, Ruth Kirkendall, and we actually now have, I say 4.5. 4. Johnson is a part-time, 4 secretaries, and you talk about loyalty. I'm lucky there, and many of you have dealt with them and know what I mean.
At this time, we'll open it up to questions. So you know, please don't ask questions to the players at this time. When we conclude here, the players will go to the arena, and the returning players, not the new freshmen, but the returning players will be available in the Smith Center at that time. Please raise your hand, and I'll get to you. If I don't know you by name, I'll direct you. Steve Elling?
Well, I know I've always said that, I've always meant it, that my goal,
I didn't stay around here for 30 years hoping Dean would leave so I could become the head coach. As I said, my goal was to go out when he did, but I'm not yet ready to go. And I think, as Dean's told me for 10 years, probably 8 to 10 years, that at the end of each season, Bill, you better get ready because I don't know whether I can do this again. And each year he's gotten his batteries recharged and ready to go in about August or September. And this year he just wasn't able to. I think, and I'm speaking here, not speaking for Dean, but just my opinion is that it's all the little things that that wore Dean out. Will you sign this autograph? Will you make this appearance? Will you call here? Will you do this? Will you do that? I think he still loves basketball, but those of you who know Dean Smith well enough, he's not going to do anything halfway. And he just knew that he didn't have the energy to give to this team that certainly deserves that, and I hope that I have that energy. And I think the timing of this situation and all made me decide that this was a job that I should take.
Tim, from Durham.
I couldn't pinpoint any one thing, and the hardest each year, someday that has to happen, and the hardest is those guys over there. I see a lot of alumni and love seeing them, and Larry Brown has offered me a job as a janitor or something up at 76ers, and I've drawn diagrams. I love it. That's all we've been doing the last 4 days. I told Shaman I got him open for a 3 for sure. If Coach Guthridge will let him run it, and we won't forget Antoine's in the game. But no, there's not really any one thing. And I told McDar he could shoot a 3. So see, I can do all those things now. It's up to Coach Guthridge to worry about. But really, what it amounts to, I think it's important for me to say just what I've been saying about this team. We have most experience since 1994 team with 6 returning, but Brad Frederick is our 7th most experienced player. We're lacking experience, and we lose an injury. We have a very difficult schedule. Be named like last year's the toughest in the country by the NCAA tournament committee. This year's will definitely be. So they have to play together. Everything's got to go right, and then it could be a special year.
Rob, then Paul.
Rob, Thursday, I guess a week ago, I went, talked Dick Badura into the office and said what I was thinking. And I said, I'm not sure of this. It's like 80%. I got a weekend to think about it. He's going to TCU for him to think about it, and kind of gave him a scenario if that happened. And the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like a good idea. And incidentally, I loved your column about summer basketball. Maybe we can fight the NCAA, get a rule through that change that mess, because that hasn't been good for collegiate basketball.
Paul.
Well, that's happened every year. As I said, you've been around a long time. I've always said, wait till October, and if I'm not really excited, and feel refreshed. I'm excited about this team. I don't know what I'm going to do. I get nervous watching Kansas and South Carolina and Middle Tennessee play with our former assistants, and now with these guys, I may have to just tape it. And when I get the score or something, I don't think I can handle it. My future, for one thing, is sure. I really am serious. I'm going to try to exercise, and the doc didn't even tell me to do that. But, when you're nearing 200 pounds at 5'10", that's time to do something. And I never had time, I didn't think, to exercise. But I know I'm going to get my letters written. Anybody's watching and you've written me, you'll get answered in the next year. And then, oh, I know, I'm going to work on expense accounts because I still have that one of David Thompson going to dinner with Coach John Lotz. I didn't mention Coach Lotz, a very important part of our success. And we took David in 1970 to dinner at the Holiday Inn in Shelby, and the three of us plus tip steaks was $11.70. So I'm going to turn that into. I haven't turned expense accounts in, so I might get around to that.
Sully, and then in the
In case
back.
you're just joining us, we are live here on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill, where Dean Smith has just announced he is stepping down as the head basketball coach here. He is now taking questions from a legion of media that has gathered for this event. They have also announced that longtime assistant Bill Guthridge will be the new Tar Heel coach.
When I was in their home in September that I wouldn't be coaching this year. And I never, in fact, I just was telling Vince when we recruited him, you know, they were telling I was old, I'd be getting out, and then, Lon Kruger, the Florida coach, went to Illinois. The Pitino, the Kentucky coach, went to the Celtics, and Mike Krzyzewski almost went to the Celtics, so I hope they do choose schools. But I never have promised somebody I would be here, but I did make recruiting calls. I can't comment about recruiting. I talked to... I was able to talk to two last night and message on one, but I'm still into that. This could be, quote, my last recruiting class. It will be.
Back there.
Now this decision's been made.
I'll feel great in about 20 minutes when this is over. And I'll be sorry if something I didn't say that I wanted to say, but I'll be around, but writing letters, I guess.
Eddington, BC.
The question to Bill Guthridge, who will be Dean Smith's successor, as to following in the stature of a man with legendary credentials.
I think it is a very difficult situation to follow the greatest coach of all time, and I know I can never live up to what he's done and the things that he has accomplished, but I'm certainly going to try. And I meant to mention earlier the Phil Ford and Dave Hanners and Pat Sullivan is now going to join our staff as a assistant coach, and with those three guys and me, the four of us working together along with these players over here to make up for the loss of Coach Smith, we're certainly going to try our best, and I think we'll be successful depending on what everybody classifies as successful, but I think we'll do a good job, and the coaches are excited about it, and I think the players will be also. It's a commitment that I'm making, and I can't talk about the parameters of the contract, but it's not an interim or one or two. It's a commitment to continue the continuity of this program and to keep it at the level that it is, in which it is right now.
Bob Holliday, then Brett.
Nobody's old enough to have been there. When I was named head coach, when I left the Air Force Academy as a lieutenant and to come to Chapel Hill, the Conboys, the Spears, and the Smiths had a picnic, and that was it. And then they named head coach, Frank McGuire, Chance Aycock, Chuck Erickson, and I were there, and we might have outnumbered the writers. I don't see anybody here. Maybe, is Ron? I don't know what. No, I doubt Ron was even there. Were you, Ron? No? Oh. Jack. Yeah, I know Jack was there. Yeah. Welcome back. When did you retire, Jack? From writing. 68. How old were you? Oh, mine.
Brett.
Enjoy the golf.
Brett, then Droshak.
How much good
a question to Coach Guthridge and what his coaching style would be like, and would it be similar to Smith's?
As done as possible after being around 30 years, and he has allowed me to for input into it also, and but he has, of course, the final say. But I certainly believe in everything that we've always done. I have a great background, very fortunate in basketball, other than Dean Smith, in that I played for a great high school coach in Harold Johnson, whose brother originated the zone press in the 1936 Olympics. And, of course, my college coach was Tex Winter, who's still in coaching as assistant with the Chicago Bulls. And then I was assistant for Tex at Kansas State for 5 years. So I've had other great coaches to work with, but the last 30, of course, with Dean Smith, and I think my philosophy and style will be almost identical to him, with hopefully the same results.
I've had just thought of Coach, the two new coaches in the ACC, and we've had great coaches in this league going against this guy, and we have great young coaches now. But Steve Robinson was 7 years with Roy Williams, so the terminology will be the same. And but both Coach Guthridge, as I said, is one of the great coaches, and he's turned down head jobs now. He has one, and we're excited about it.
Dave Noshak, Jim Hefner.
I'll answer that.
I don't know. I played quarterback, but I don't think I can go help Keldor or Davenport. And I see the age is getting me. I forgot your first question. I know. I'm not that old. Just trying to add a little humor to the group. But well, I don't know what's the top of your game. I don't think that enters into it at all unless you're fired. Certainly. The so-called record, the guys taught me they were so right. That had nothing to do with it. And then if we'd gotten beat by Fairfield, somebody had been saying, is that why you're retiring? And, of course, that'd be the wrong reason for any of that.
Jim, then Al.
The question being posed to Bill Guthridge, who will be the next coach, is when did he and Coach Smith first talk about this?
I thought she was going to play bridge this afternoon, but she was able to work this into her schedule. As I said, about 10 years ago, Dean started saying, you're going to have to take over because I don't have the enthusiasm. And each year he would get it, regenerate, and be ready to go. And as he said, Roy and Eddie and Bill Miller and I got together in April, and he seemed more set at that time, but I still thought, and I think Eddie and Roy did too, that we could get his batteries recharged and ready to go. And but really, it came down to Tuesdays when I really found out that it was actually going to happen. And as I told him then, if you want to, at 1 minute till 2, change your mind, that'll be great with all of us. And in fact, if he wants to change his mind now, we'll let him do it.
Al, actually. Al, then Rick Dorsey.
What kind of...
Question to Coach Smith whether he'll stay around in some capacity as a consultant.
Oh, my contract. In '81, they said we'd have a 20... I've only, as you know, Al, I think I talked to J.D. Morgan twice about the UCLA job, one time for a half hour, another time for an hour. I was really treated well by Sonny Werblin, and to go to the Knicks one time. That took longer to say no, and so it was never a problem. But I think Chancellor Fordham and John Swafford in '81 said, let's tie it down to the year 2001, and it said 15 years as head coach, but I could stop at any time after 5 and work for the chancellor and the athletic director, and continue through the year 2001. So I guess it was, 95 that they added the 5. I could stay to 2001 as a coach. Oh, all that answer wasn't your question?
Pressing for the answer on the consultant's role.
I think that's going to be decided with the 3 men up here. I do want to stay in Chapel Hill. So let's leave it at that. I'm not sure what the duties would be. But I know I can't play golf every day. I'd go nutty, especially the way I'm playing.
Let me address that. Coach and I have talked in a very preliminary way. I'm delighted that he wants to stay in Chapel Hill. We want him to stay, and he can do anything he wants to do. In fact, I've had a couple of email messages this morning from some students who suggested that I retire and let Coach be the chancellor. And if he'd like to, he's welcome to.
Rick Dorsey.
We spent a lot of time trying to talk him out of it, and it became clear after a while that it was his resolve, and I didn't try as hard as I might have because I respect Dean too much. Dean knows himself and knows what he wants better than I, and it would be selfish for the institution to impose on him an obligation that is just not appropriate to the circumstances.
I said, Coach, this is serious, isn't it? I said, when Chancellor Hooker appointed me on June the 25th, I had a press conference, and I was asked by one of you in the audience, what was I going to do when Coach Smith resigned? And my answer was that I was going to resign before he did. Coach, I'd like to stay a little bit longer. I didn't know that, but Coach had some conversation with me about it, so this was, as he said, the latter part of last week, and I had the weekend to think about it. My sincere hope was that when we got back together that he would want to continue, and as Chancellor Hooker said, that we would certainly honor his request. And yes, I don't know that I was shocked on Tuesday because he had given me that warning.
Did I try to talk Coach Smith out of resigning? Yes, I tried to talk him out, but I think, and all of us associated with him certainly agree that he has a right to step down of what he's given his whole life, more or less, to this program, and whatever he wants to do, we're 100% behind. But as I also said, that I would have wished that we could continue the way we were, that he was the head coach and I was the assistant coach. And I would imagine that it'll change my life quite a bit because in dealing, one thing like in dealing with the press for 30 years, I've said, I'm sorry, I can't talk about the team, you have to talk to Dean Smith. In fact, I may do that again.
Press conferences this year.
But I'm excited about it, and it will be a change, but one in which I'm looking forward to.
Back here on the right,
Gosh, I don't
Coach
think I
Smith to
looked
reflect
back.
on his illustrious career, and what are some of the highlights?
Players that graduated here, went on and had very, happy lives for the most part, and who stay in touch and enjoyed their experiences at Chapel Hill. I can't find one who has come to Chapel Hill. Even those that transfer have come back and worked in the summer or camp. I haven't found any of them think they made a mistake to come here. And of course, I have said that once or two times in recruiting, but go through any of our lettermen and say I made a mistake to choose to Carolina. So I guess I would be happy most about that. And the peer, I don't know whether I think the people that follow Carolina basketball are proud of our program, and it is our program, and it still is our program, led by Coach Guthridge. But that's probably special. It's special that, you know, the only time I ever was into the winning at all costs was the Olympics of '76. As Coach Thompson and Coach Guthridge, we were all three coaches, really, what we were. And when we got the gold medal, that's the only thing we kept talking about, win. I'd made decisions here that what I thought was best for human beings and things, and then there was win, 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 win. And I even did, some guy did something wrong. Here I would have suspended him, but we're going in the gold medal game. I just let it go. And that's got, you know. But so I've changed differently. But I think the peers that chose Coach Thompson, Coach Guthridge, and I was a treat for a coach to have other coaches come in and over the years and say, we run your stuff and like it, and that's been special. But still, the number one thing is just the relationships with our players.
Right here with Student Radio.
Question to refer to the students that are taking a peek in through the windows here at the natatorium.
I mean, teach. Like if I were a doctor, I'd go teach in the med school. And I want to tell the phys ed people I'd like to teach the course on basketball, you know, for coaches. And Dick said maybe we can have a seminar. I always enjoyed being with students. I get some requests, and so that would be fun overall. And I really did forget your initial. No, with somebody. Oh, tomorrow. Yeah, back to. I want to continue clinics. I have, like, this scares me to death. This type of thing. I'll have 2,000 coaches to talk to up out of state Saturday, and I won't even think of what to say. Get up and talk, and that's the easiest thing in the world. So I'd like to continue to do clinics.
Frank Behorn.
Frank, I don't. We're losing and see me crying, you know, I know. I don't know how that's going to work because I have too much emotion invested in the coaching staff, and then also there's a lot of difference with 2 minutes to play, and I'm concentrating so much I'm very calm. But as I've said, on television, watching Eddie Fogler's games, Roy Williams games, Randy Wheel, I'm go crazy. I can see what fans experience. And same way with Larry Brown and the pros. You know, I don't think he can take 15 wins that they had without him last year. And George Karl in Seattle, I even turned that off one time at one of the Utah games.
Rick Fennell.
Everyone's talked a lot about how you and Bill are similar. How do you think he'll be different as a coach?
Bill Guthridge, I think, is a real positive person, and I think that will help the team, and it's helped over the years, where I'm more picky, and I don't mean to be, but we did that after a win, and we haven't played well. It used to bother me terribly. Now, this past January, when we beat State and played terribly, I was ecstatic. But so I did change, but and Coach Guthridge just has a lot of enthusiasm, and I know the players will work very hard for him and for Phil Ford and Dave Hanners, and not make my decision look bad, so they could do it for me too.
There in the fourth row, right behind Mr. Keith. Yes, sir.
Dean's reflections of his own timetable of retirement.
Well, I said I was hurting the hearing, but I think we get something up here. Going out on your own terms, that means you're not fired, as far as I know, in coaching. Sure, there's been some situations where maybe a coach was kind of pushed out and he resigned, and that's a shame. I fight for coaches. It's a difficult job. Now we're totally overpaid at this level, and at one time I'd be happy to be Division III, and back to Chancellor and I were talking about something wrong in our society, that we have this group here, this many, and Nobel Prize winner in physics leaving to go somewhere. It wouldn't be this, but that we won't get into our society and ills. So, you know, I've gotten too much attention, and that's maybe part of it. I don't enjoy this, and that may be part of what Coach Guthridge was referring to. But yet, you want your team to do well. I want them happy. They want to have 21,000 there, and I do too. And I do. Our students are very good at games, and I think they know that's the way we'd like it. Is you don't hear the profanity and all that going. We've started waving arms, and then soon they'll learn that doesn't work either way. You know, they're still going to make their foul shots.
I haven't talked to the General Counsel about that, so I can't really respond to the question.
Right here on the front left.
I don't know,
That was the
or
first
have
one, if
given
you
it
remembered.
a great deal of thought, if any, in fact, none. I hope. I don't know. He knew a little basketball and did a good job and lived happily ever after, and loved his players and received loyalty in return. No, yeah, definitely not. Really, coaches, there isn't such a thing as the greatest anything. Really, we're all human beings, and we try to do our job. And even though we did it, like in '74, we had 6,000 for a game in Greensboro. We'd gotten the interest going good, and then it waned, and then now it's really high. But, you know, being at Carolina is, you know, really helps. Being at the University of North Carolina, as Chancellor said, we've done very well with good student athletes. And they choose this place, and it's a great place to go to school. You don't see guys leaving. Some might, not many flunk out, but some do. But you go downtown sometime. It's a nice place.
Back here. Right here.
Question referencing when Mike Krzyzewski had to take the year off with a back injury several years ago and started to appreciate some of the smaller things about the game.
Great coach, and certainly we'll miss competing against one another, but we recruit against Duke a lot, and they recruit against us, and we say nice things about each other, and it's a healthy rivalry. But I don't think you could equate. I think he had a back problem. Mine is, believe it or not, it isn't mental. It isn't. Maybe it's hard of hearing, but no, I can't believe it's that either. But just there's, you know, things that go into a decision, and I'll make the best of the decision. I'm confident of that, and especially after suffering the way I've suffered the last 2 days, talking to the team, the staff, and all of you.
Anthony. What's your first duty as head coach?
What, my first duty? Am I the head coach? I guess now is this is my first duty. But of course, we've got a ton of work the staff does, and in getting ready for practice to start a week from Saturday, and we have been preparing a lot, as I said, because I thought that there was this possibility, but we have an awful lot of work to do in getting ready for practice. We certainly aren't going to cheat this year's team. First time I met Dean Smith was when I was a sophomore in high school in Parsons, Kansas, and my high school coach, Harold Johnson, took us to Kansas to see the University of Kansas play Colorado, and that was the first college game I saw. My sister was a student there at the time and had a few dates with Dean, and I met him that night. That was the first time I met him, and then our paths have continued to cross. And by the way, I'm glad that they didn't get married. I don't think that would have worked out for either one of them. We continued to stay in touch. He would come to Manhattan in the summer to visit with family there, and when I was assistant coach to Tex Winter, and we would play golf. So we just continued to follow each other. And when Larry Brown left to go back to playing, I was coaching that summer because in the 60s there weren't the summer camps, summer recruiting, and Tex Winter got me a job in Ponce, Puerto Rico, as the head coach,
Where he was coach of the year.
And Dean called me down there and said Larry had left, if I'd be interested, and of course I was, and that was 30 years ago.
In the back there, all the way right there.
May I ask Coach Smith what's the best piece of advice you could give to Bill Guthridge as he takes over the reins?
Coach Guthridge and I have been together so long. It's we're straight with one another, and the whole staff is. In fact, Eddie Fogler, a quick story will tell you our relationship is John Lotz was assistant with Coach Guthridge, and he was driving through Charlotte, and I was telling him to go left. Coach Guthridge was telling him to go right, and finally just pulled over, didn't say a word, stopped, and jumped in the back seat and went like that. And the same thing happened in New York. Eddie Fogler had been a taxi driver in New York as a summer job, and I tell him to take the 59th Street Bridge, and Coach Guthridge was saying take the Triborough, and he said, look, I know New York. I grew up here. So it's fun to be able to discuss, disagree, and then come out. And I know I'll be there anytime he wants to call, but I'm not going to bother, one of these coaches that hang around. And I don't want to do that, but I'm there at any call, and I hope. And we just went through our X and O's, and that's something I think I do real well, and I hope that it works.
What will Coach miss the most?
That's hard to ask. I don't blueprint the future. I've used that word before, and I really do appreciate such a warm situation like that, and much better than after an NCAA tournament game that we've lost. So I'm going to enjoy this. I don't have to do that other and again.
I got 4 on the card here, and I'll take a couple beyond that, and then we're going to wrap up here with Coach. Kurt?
Whether Coach feels any feelings of guilt leaving before some of the class graduates, the current recruits?
My only guilt, if there is such a word, as I said, some team someday would be my last team. And so, yes, there's guilt, and I look in their faces, and I just couldn't handle that yesterday, and I couldn't if I turned right now. But I still believe it's best for them, unless I could give them what I want, but I'm going to work for them, and I owe them. Any player who's played for me, I owe them. And my dad felt that way in coaching high school, football, basketball, track, and I feel that way and always will. So they haven't seen the last of me. I think the question you didn't hear was this timing. I think is something I believed in all along. Unless I knew for sure in some spring I've had it and resigned, I certainly wouldn't want to say I'll coach this year and resign after the season. Can you imagine how many rocking chairs you get around these different places and all the acting like they like you? I've seen that happen too often.
Larry Brown on Dean Smith's staff 30 years ago.
I'm going to see a doctor about my hearing.
Camera's working.
We do have some noise up here. I hope that's the reason. How can he hear and I can't?
I'm guessing.
Oh.
When was the last time you were in a game as a head coach?
I just asked Coach.
I haven't seen
Was a head
the last time. Last time I coached as a head coach, I coached the freshmen here when I first came, and I coached the freshmen at Kansas State, and I coached in Puerto Rico 2 summers.
They asked him to be the '68 Olympic coach at Puerto Rico, but he refused.
And I've taken over for Dean about twice. in the last 30 seconds or so, or maybe even longer than that one game. But it has been a long time since I was
He had a
head
great
coach.
second half against Clemson once.
Three more. Here, then Sully, then Rick
Coach
Dorsey,
Smith
and
was
Wilson
ejected.
But as I think I got all the question, as Dean said, we do have the first veteran team back that we've had in a few years, and I know that Phil and Dave and I have had the individual workouts this fall, and their enthusiasm has been outstanding. The upperclassmen and leading the freshmen by example on what they're supposed to do. So I think it certainly is a plus, but we are also losing Dean Smith that we'll all have to compensate for.
Serge Zwicker.
And Serge, right.
Rick Sullivan.
Question to Dean Smith as to his reaction that Bill Guthridge never really was considered a top replacement over all the years. All the other names mentioned, but now it ends up to be Coach Bill Guthridge.
I think it's unanimous in this room. We held up the hands. We had some great coaches that went to school here. And in fact, that's something I'm going to do. I'm going to have some fun, try maybe get around to all their teams. And I won't criticize. I just want to see them, you know. And so Coach Guthridge has, you know, been sought by so many athletic directors. Frank Broyles tried twice. Arkansas, Penn State. Joe Paterno really wanted him badly, and in fact, that's his only indecision. When we lost to San Francisco, he couldn't say goodbye to the team. I said, go tell them before they hear it in the press conference, and that was '78. Phil's last game, and San Francisco had beaten us, and he said, I'll check my bags to Chicago and I'll call you whether I'm going for the press conference, University Station or Chapel Hill. And he called Dr. Fordham and I and said, and me, and said, I'm going on to Chapel Hill and I won't ever interview again. So he didn't interview, did he, Chancellor? We got to talk.
I think also on that line, it has never been my goal to be head coach at the University of North Carolina. As Steve Elling brought up with the first question, that I've always said that that wasn't a goal of mine to be a head coach, and just to go out when Dean did, but I wasn't ready to go out at this time, and I think because of the timing of the situation and just all points considered, that's why I'm the head coach, and I'm fired up and ready to go.
One final question, if you would. Don't scatter, please, after this question is answered, because we want to give you a couple of bits of information. Rick Dorsey, last one.
Yeah, I let him through.
A reference that President Clinton made a phone call to Coach Smith today.
Well, it's been hard to reach, and it just be so, you know, because I've been on the phone so much. But just to see the people here, I'm at Coach Brown. He let Stackhouse and Montross and Derek Phelps go with the team and kept Scott Williams and John Kuster because he said wouldn't have enough to play the Knicks tonight if they all stayed. But it was special for him and special for John Thompson. That's a big surprise when John and Craig came down from Georgetown, as well as some of the people I see.
Okay, thank you. There are bios on Coach Smith, Coach Guthridge.
What has been speculation since about 8:30 last night is now fact. Coach Dean Smith, the winningest coach in college basketball.